Okay. If not, I would switch to Natasa Milojevic. She has a master in political science. She's a journalist. She was former head of the SDP parliamentary group in Serbia and an expert on international relations and communication. She is one of the founders of the social democratic parties and movements in Serbia, a director of a dozen of public awareness campaign, head of DOS creative team, winner of the creative person of the year. She's a founder and a member of the strategic support team, which is a think tank organization that cares about strategic development of human environment, and founder and member of Serbia, an organization dealing with renewable energy resources, intelligent energies. She has participated in the work of numerous world, European and regional forums and conferences, and she was often either in the role of moderator or lecturer. So please, Natasa.
Can you hear me? Because Paolo just lost. Paolo, unmute.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Bearing in mind the fact, hello everybody. Bearing in mind the fact that it is late and it is 8:15 and probably everybody are tired and slightly losing focus. I will squeeze my contribution into the just bullets. I used to say some snippets from the menu because I think that many interesting facts and things have been said already. But from my perspective, not those which are strictly connected to relations between violence, democracy in a state of emergency. We are all in a state of emergency due to pandemic of COVID-19. And when I was asked by Solveig to talk about this state of emergency, violence and democracy, I wonder myself as a person of politics, let's say, what actually democracy is today, how people do perceive democracy today. The first decades of the 21st century actually started with new wars and everywhere in the Middle East, in the Balkans. And it's hard to believe that those who got bombs over their heads and suffer destruction and complete destruction of their states and their societies, they do believe in democracy. It's hard to believe that it is easy to convince them that democracy rules, because democracy for aggressors is not democracy for attacked people or peoples. Second bullet is about fear. Dozens of public surveys in Europe, and not only in Europe, show that the general feeling of people, of humans, is fear. It's a dominant feeling. Fear of illness, fear of not being able to get proper health treatment, not being able to pay for health treatment, fear that there will not be doctors and medical staff who is going to take care of them, fear of drugs, fear of not having drugs, proper drugs for curing. Of course, fear of pandemic, and that pandemic will last forever. So fear is not talking about your initiative. Fear is not a generator of social progress. Furthermore, fear is the killer of any social resistance. Your noble initiative, ours, whatever, to struggle for society without violence could sound naive. Today, especially, you have been talking about many aspects of violence, and violence today becomes or became a social norm, I'm afraid. Public figures and public officers and servants, they are declarately committed to opposing violence and punishing perpetrators of violence of all kinds. On the other hand, we are facing quite ourselves, actually, quite powerless against violence. Violence is in everyday life. We can meet that from media, in media, at school, in the family, state violence against citizens, verbal violence of politicians against their constituencies and voters, street violence, media, again, violent movies, violent art. So are we ready to really understand how violence is generated today, how societies become violent, or persons, or some social groups, and is violence profitable? And who benefits from violence? Who could be entitled to promote world movement against violence? We have world organizations, we have UN, we have many other world organizations entitled to, let's say, to take care of the world. I don't believe that that care is proper enough. My suggestion is to think carefully about campaign, serious campaign, together with the world organizations campaigning this initiative, sending the message, making a teaser, asking the questions, answering the questions as well. Talking about my country today, Serbia is one of the countries that are struggling through economic, social, and cultural crisis. And unfortunately, I think that number of such states and countries is getting bigger. And in the Balkans and the whole region, we are in the midst of pandemic and the state of emergency, and the whole society is looking for solutions and answers. This pandemic is a kind of a trigger, but pandemic does not offer solutions. It's just, pandemic is just rising needs with no proper answers. Also, today, European Union is facing a serious task to overcome the problem which is imposed by Hungary and Poland. And you in Italy are suffering hard consequences of not having final decision of the EU on the so-called COVID budget. COVID budget should be about 7-point-something billion euros and still is not on the track to those who need it the most. It is also a kind of a violence. It is a very specific kind of a violence. And the consequences are for millions of people, citizens of Europe. United Europe does not have solution so far. These months, society, academic sector, above all, we are all seeking and demanding agreement on the question, asking ourselves to what extent can the state of emergency threaten freedom, personal and freedom of society, of citizens or community. Some groups who are protesting against emergency measures, against wearing masks, against isolation and quarantine, believe that they have their democratic right to stick to this position. Citizens who respect the measures, especially those who have survived Corona or are fighting against Corona, like medical workers, they of course believe have not only right, but also obligation to respect the principle of freedom, justice, human rights, to wear masks, to respect measures, to be promoters of vaccines and vaccinations. That is also the violence of those who do not believe. Pandemic and the life in Corona showed, like, you know, like snow shows the traces of wildlife when we watch the snow, that everything which is leading right now is leading to this new social context. And I'm afraid of this new social context. And I do care where it is going to lead societies. I will just mention it's very interesting. It is over internet. I don't know who the author is. A kind of a statement which says, in this age of Corona, it's like a deep ocean in which we all are. The only thing is that some, few in number, sail in luxury yachts, and the others who are barely have a paddle. So democracy is for all of us to sail, metaphorically speaking, to reach the mainland, not only to have a paddle. We can find the positive side of pandemic. Let me be slightly hypocritical. Pandemic shows that all, poor and rich, are now equal in fight against disease. And disease does not recognize poor or rich. It is a kind of forced social cohesion. I just attract your focus on a very important thing, and I know that Dragana will support this very much because we used to talk about that without knowledge, without ruling of knowledge, accepting knowledge as a social norm, we will have people instead of cultural delivers. We will have subjects, consumers, followers. Black Friday, you know, and there is a huge crowd in front of shopping malls. Huge. What to say? I just want to drop some things which I wrote down to save the time. I used to say that this time is a time of abnormality. Why? Context, which is dictatorship of business world, should be overcome, because dictatorship of business world is nothing but the violence. And we do not have the correct answer. We do not have an answer at all. Equal opportunity for all is a principle that has been adopted a long time ago. And today's masters of the world should be acquainted with that principle. Equal opportunity for all, not just for corporate giants, financial empires, and for invisible and so powerful infotech companies. Even in this moment, we are income of the internet moguls. At this very moment, we are working for them, being on Zoom. So, without exchange between us, of the real people on the spot, not only online, we will not go on. I'm afraid that the further action that you as an initiative, as a group, will obtain or plan to do, or the strategy you make for, should be, how to say, very carefully knitted like lace, like Venetian lace. The actions should be planned in details with the participants from all over the Europe and the world. If we, whoever, want really long-lasting impact. Derek mentioned between, let's say, relations between art or contemporary art, film and video, and questions regarding violence in that aspect. Oh, it's a long subject and story, and I hope that at least him and myself can continue talking about that. Just to conclude with this, who benefits from violence and where the ultimate benefit is actually. We should not forget the business society. Because who sells the violent movies? Who produces violent art, films, video, movies, video games, which are food for brains of children and young people, and not only young? Think about it. Thank you.